Welcome to the Hockey Writers Maple Leafs Lounge, a weekly show from our Toronto Maple Leafs writing crew, bringing you the latest news, rumors, trades, player grades, prospects, and much more. From training camp to the playoffs, from draft day to the trade deadline, our team covers everything that happens with the blue and white. Come on in and pull up a chair. Welcome to the Maple Leafs Lounge.
Hello and welcome back to the Maple Leafs Lounge. I am your host, Peter Baracchini, and as always, I am joined by my colleague over at the Hockey Writers, Alex Hobson, and our Canucks writer / producer / turned Maple Leafs fan. And Matt, it seems like you are good luck the last few episodes that you have been on. I should have mentioned, this is Matthew Zator here. I'm speechless right now. I am absolutely thrilled and exhilarated to say that this is going to be the most joyous and happiest episode of Maple Leafs Lounge ever, because the Maple Leafs finally won a round in the Stanley Cup Finals. Can we just get like a little air horn to kind of thing? Obviously, it is a very huge moment for Maple Leafs, for the Maple Leafs and the fans in general who haven't won a playoff series since 2004, and we can finally put to rest some of those jokes. So, win a playoff round, down 3-1 or down 4-1, because now the Boston Bruins have taken over. Sorry, Boston Bruins fans, but we're just going to jump right into it because there is a lot to get to with this episode. But before we do, Alex, how are you doing?
I'll give you one guess at how I'm doing.
I'm ecstatic, happy, joyous, because
I'll tell you right now,
witnessed a playoff series win ever.
Never. I started watching this team the year after they won. They last won a round, like literally the year after. 2005 is what I started watching. 2006, I guess it was 2005-06. But it's been a long time coming. It's a big day for me, Peter. I'm doing my very first Maple Leafs Lounge episode live from the Twilight Zone.
There we go. The fact that it's from the Twilight Zone it makes it even better. Matt, how are you doing? And again, thank you for bringing good luck the last few episodes because the Maple Leafs won.
Yeah, I guess I am. It's been a ride. I mean, this is probably the series I've watched full games of. Any of the other series I've kind of been in and out of, but this is honestly the one I've been watching like it's a Canucks series. So I'm fully invested with you guys. So hopefully, like Canadian teams, Toronto, I have no problem cheering for. Edmonton, I have a little problem for because certain things, but whatever. Ecstatic for you guys, and this really brings me back just quickly to when the Canucks kept getting beaten by the Chicago Blackhawks and they just kept kicking them out of the playoffs, and then when Burrows scored that, it just felt the same. It just felt that it was the same type of thing.
Skating away from that collision and taking the slap shot from the slot. Oh
yeah, that
gave me chills. I'm not even a Canucks fan, so
it's like the finally it's done.
Yeah,
and you can stop talking about this. So yeah, it's great to follow this. Hopefully we'll have it for a few more series here.
Exactly. And we're going to get right into it right now. So as you may have heard from off the top of the show, the Maple Leafs won a Stanley Cup playoff round, and we're going to keep throwing that in there every single time throughout the whole entire show. But obviously it was a huge monumental moment for the Maple Leafs. Having like this dark cloud weigh over them with all the past failures and everything like that. Alex, what does this series mean, or what does this win mean to the team going forward? Because what was your initial reaction throughout the whole entire thing, and even especially Game 6 when you saw that game-winning goal by John Tavares?
Yeah, well, I started to get an idea that things may be different when they made those comeback wins in Game 3 and Game 4, just because you look at you watch any Leafs playoff series from the past 5 years or so, they are always the team on the other end of a game like that. They're always the one choking the leads and always the one folding when it matters the most. All the way until the Austin Matthews era from 2013, the main joke was Game 7 in Boston. It still gets brought up now. So these guys have built a brand on folding in the most important moments and fumbling the bag at the 1 yard line just every time they have an opportunity. So when they had two chances there against Tampa Bay where they easily could have lost, to see that kind of resilience and see them come back in those games and get contributions from everybody across the ice, made me optimistic that, you know what, maybe we're looking at a team here that's actually doing things different this time around. And then I think we all had some nerves in us after game 5, but then they came back in game 6 and they finally got it done when it mattered. So I think that I've heard the term house money thrown around a lot, like they're playing with house money. And I think that's pretty much exactly how you can put it now with this team. There's like all they could, like, you can't say that winning a round is where you have to set the bar this year, but what you can say is that winning a round is all they needed to do to abandon all that pressure, because now they can go into this next series and they don't have to think about, oh, you know, if they don't win this year, what do? The core is gone. They're going to have to fire everybody, trade everybody. This is the first time that they're going into a playoff series when there's no pressure. It's just, you know what, you guys broke the curse. Now do whatever you want with it. So I think it can only mean good things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you brought up the main thing, that this feels different. This group has been resilient and they haven't found a way to get those, you know, ugly wins and gut it out like they have in the past, where maybe they didn't deserve to win. And Matt, looking at the numbers here, the Tampa Bay Lightning outplayed the Maple Leafs heavily at 5-on-5. You know, you look at the shot attempts, the scoring chances for, it was heavily tilted in the Maple Leafs' favor. Like, how big is this for them to try and find those type, or to win those games? And even so, like, how important is this going forward for them?
Well, the biggest thing is that they know how to win those games. You know, you're going into a period and you're down 4-1. You could easily go and fold it up and say, okay, all right, we're going to lose this one. Let's move on to the next one. But they didn't. And their key players stepped up. Austin Matthews with a couple of goals in the third period there. I think that game alone, I think, was a big turning point in it. Because Tampa Bay could have come up, and then all of a sudden, you know, you bring in all those demons coming back. Like, oh no, it's happening again. And it could have happened again when Stamkos tied the game in game 6. Oh no, this is happening again. We're not going to win. And then in overtime, when I saw that Tampa Bay was getting most of the chances, I'm like, yeah, Toronto's going to win this. Because usually, and it's weird how this happens in overtime, the team that gets most of the chances doesn't win the game. It's the team that doesn't. It's the one that's the bounce or the lucky, or maybe not lucky, but gets that one chance that goes in. So
Matt, I'm so glad that you bring that up, because when I look back at game 3, and that was the one where they were getting outplayed in overtime, just like they were in the third period. And then they scored that one lucky goal, the shot from the point for Morgan Riley. Mm-hmm. The game that I found myself comparing it to on more than one occasion was game 6 against Montreal in 2021. When the Leafs clawed back in the final 10 minutes, made it 2-2, went into overtime, outshot Montreal 13-2 in overtime. They were all over Montreal in that overtime period. And then one shot from the slot from Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and it's done. Mm-hmm. So you're right, Matt. They're really, it's not so much about, you know, and this is not to say that you shouldn't be contributing your top effort at all times, but in overtime, especially in the playoffs, it's not so much about, you know, bringing it 24/7 and making sure you're constantly outplaying the other team, so much as it is just being in the right place at the right time and scoring the goals that are laid out on a platter for you if you get the opportunity, right? Like, it sounds kind of like a cliche, but
absolutely. And you both mentioned bounces not going the Maple Leafs way, and, you know, getting outplayed, and it's usually the team that gets outplayed that ends up winning. And obviously, I'm going to break this up into 2 sections here, because we're going to focus on the star players, but I want to focus on one in particular, in John Tavares, because he was the one that scored the series clinching goal. Alex, how fitting is it for him, who signed on with the Maple Leafs in 2018, to get into this moment, to score that clinching goal? It seemed like it had to be him to try and get this team over the hurdle as the captain. And now that he finally does, it feels like it's a weight off everyone's shoulder. They feel confident. Obviously, he's happy about the moment, but he says that the job is not done, that there's a bigger picture in mind. What do you make of him scoring that goal, and just, you know, him being in that moment that it had to be him, despite it being a lucky bounce off the skate of Darren Radish?
You remember that it was almost his moment last year in game 7, but that goal got called off. So, you know, you can see Tavares being the one, or wanting to be the one, at least, to step up when it matters most and to make up for last year. And if he had that in the back of his mind, then it worked out, because People were kind of getting on Tavares a little bit. He scored his hat trick in game 2, kind of went quiet in the next 3 games. But again, you know what? I don't care if you don't lead the team in goals. I don't care if you don't lead the team in hits. As long as you do those things in the clutch moments, like Tavares did, scoring in overtime there, the rest of your performance doesn't matter to me. And you know what? If you really want to get dramatic with this, you could make an honest argument that John Tavares scoring that goal saved the Leafs franchise. Like, if he doesn't score there, let's say Tampa scores a goal, they go back to Toronto for game 7. We all know the story about game 7s, especially with Toronto. Could be honestly by the flip of a coin. And at that point, they lose, they get rid of all, like they trade a core player or something like that. They get rid of the best general manager they've had in a long time. And I am shamelessly saying that now after that trade deadline, especially, there's no doubt that Dubas has done what other GMs couldn't in a much better way. And I feel like the organization would be at such a different point. And it obviously doesn't all come back to that goal. It was in game 6, but still, I mean, him scoring that goal right there ensures that, there is life with this team. They are capable of doing something like that. And the only way out isn't by trading something. So went down a bit of a rabbit hole there, but that's kind of what it seems to me, or that's kind of what I'm seeing from it after watching this core for so long and watching so many failed attempts.
Yeah, and especially, what made that moment even special is what led up to that goal. Like, he was like, Austin Matthews was having shift after shift to try and change the momentum and get the Maple Leafs on the board. And he generated that in the second period and even at points in the third period. Like, he was being evident, and we didn't quite see that from Tavares, but that game breaking shift in overtime is what dealt it in. He was going around the ice, circling, battling for the pucks to keep it alive. And then we saw the battle down below with Knies to chip it back to Tavares, and then he gets that opportunity to score the goal. So I think that shift alone showed that, Tavares and everybody and all the stars are doing everything it takes to win. And this cuts into the second point, or like the mix-up of breaking this up. Matt, I'm going to come over to you. The biggest question was the Maple Leaf Stars not thriving or rising to the occasion in big moments, but we saw Matthews with that goal. We saw Matthews make the comeback with his 2-goal performance in game 4. And you're seeing I'm just going to read off the stats right here. Mitch Marner's leading the team with 11 points. Matthews in goals with 5, second with 9 points. Morgan Riley 8, and then Tavares, Nylander, and Riley all have 7 points as well. How big is it now that, the Stars are consistently producing and rising to the occasion right now?
Well, the thing is they've done that. They did it last year too. I mean, Matthews had a lot of points in that first round there against these same Lightning. So it's like, I think is just doing it at clutch times rather than just doing it. And that's the biggest difference for me, because Matthews, yes, he had a bunch of goals and points last season, but I can't really pick one that was a clutch goal that's like, you need to score here. And he did 3 times actually. To score the first goal in the third period in game 6, and to get the Leafs on the board, and then those 2 really clutch goals to spark the comeback. So it's when he's scoring them, not how many this time. And same thing with Morgan Riley. Throughout the season, he's been a bit of a whipping boy for fans, and now he's just leading the charge on defense. And what does he have, like 3 or 4 goals?
Yeah.
3 goals. Yeah, 3 goals. And they're all, again, big moments of the games. And, he had an overtime winner. And I want to throw in Ryan O'Reilly as well. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of goals and points, but those faceoffs that he's won are just as good as goals. And that's, they're all coming to play at the right times and scoring those points and goals when they need to, not just for a stat on paper.
It's funny. You wouldn't think that he has a lot of points in the series, but he's actually got 7 in 6 games.
Yes. Well, okay.
Yeah,
there you go. He's quietly doing
he's been, and then, you know what? Like you said, that those faceoffs are so important. I think that half of those assists that he has are off of faceoff wins. So,
there you go.
they all count the same.
Yeah, and it's great that both of you brought it up, that, it's the moments in where they're trying to get those points and those factors. It's everything that, when the pressure's mounting, they seem to kind of falter in those situations, but they didn't. Every single time things got ugly, they didn't go quietly. They fought back and battled hard. And that was the main thing that they were missing. That killer instinct, that ability to stick with it and dig deep was missing quite a bit. And the fact that they found that in this series can be a big factor going forward. And we're going to jump into our next topic too. But before I do, Morgan Rielly has just as many goals in these playoffs as he did in the regular season right now, just one off. So I understand where you were coming from, Matt. He's a bit of a whipping boy because of the fact that he doesn't take those opportunities to shoot, but in the playoffs, it seems like he elevates those shots. He elevates his play. And, it seems to me that maybe he was saving up for this run. Who knows? Maybe Morgan knows something that we don't. But yeah, going into our next topic right now, obviously second round is set. We're going to get into a Florida Panther preview right now in just a moment, but Matt, can the Maple Leafs use this series win as motivation for something bigger down the line? Like where they're just not satisfied with one win right now. And now the fact that the Colorado Avalanche, defending champs, are out, the Boston Bruins, the heavy favorites in going into these playoffs to win the cup, are now out. It's anybody's game. And can the Maple Leafs find that, motivation to say, hey, this is our time right now?
Well, if you said it, those two big pillars, actually want to say three because Tampa Bay was one of two.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those three big giants are out, and those are the two finalists from last year gone. We're gonna have a new Stanley Cup final, and I'm really hoping that it's an Oilers Maple Leafs final. It would just be so much fun to watch. Problem is, I don't know if Gary Bettman will allow it.
Oh yeah, no, that's a fair point.
Unfortunately, I don't know. But yeah, it's they could definitely use this as motivation because they did it at certain points where, like you said, you're playing with house money. You're not really, that pressure is gone. If you don't win, whatever. I mean, they'll be disappointed, obviously. I mean, you're not going to be like, oh yeah, who cares? We went around. No, they want to win, and that, like Austin Matthews said, this is step 1 of 3. And of course, he didn't say what the two steps are, but I'm assuming it's get out of the East and win the cup. So, but yeah, I think they can definitely use this to go back on because they had a lot of adversity they went through in the first round, and teams like the Boston Bruins never did throughout the season, and never really they started having it in the playoffs and they couldn't deal with it.
Good time to start having adversity.
Yeah, right.
Alex, I was just about to ask you, Matt brought it up, adversity is because of everything that the Maple Leafs had everything, or the adversity that they faced, the failures in the past. Was this the final stepping stone to something greater for this team to achieve success?
It feels weird using the word final stepping stone because it makes it sound like there's no other steps to take, but you are right in the sense that, when it comes to eliminating the demons, that is what they had to do. I don't think there's any more demons haunting them. The 1967 curse is the 67 curse, and it did not hit as hardly as the Leafs getting out of the first round for the first time since 2004. And for the first time with this core of star forwards on a team that it was more talented than any other team we've had. So I think there were different situations for sure. I want to read out this quote from Luke Schenn today. And if you've been following along with the things that Luke Schenn says at his media availabilities, it almost sounds like he is talking the entire team through a cup run. Like if you were spectating on it from the outside, it sounds like he's doing the narration after every game. So the quote the specific one I want to bring up here, he goes, "You feel a sense of accomplishment for the next 24 hours and it's on to the next challenge. Winning a round can give the guys confidence for sure, knowing that you're capable of it. But in saying that, there's a ton of obstacles we have to overcome." So, it's just, I think that they're obviously, they have to use the round win as motivation. And, you can just tell based on the vibe of the team and the players that they have this year that they're not taking this kind of at a they're not taking it at a point where acting like it doesn't mean anything, like we'll be able to walk all over this. Like they're taking every step seriously is the thought that I was trying to get out of my mouth there.
No, it's all good. No, it's great that you brought up that quote, because who needs Will Arnett to narrate a playoff documentary or Maple Leaf documentary when you have Luke Shen? Although I still would like to hear Will Arnett document a Stanley Cup run. But as we get into the second part of our show, here's a quick word from the hockey writers.
Interested in writing for the Hockey Writers? If you have experience writing about hockey, are passionate about the sport, and are looking to take your writing to the next level, the Hockey Writers could be the place for you. Here at THW, you will have the opportunity to hone your craft at one of the world's largest and most respected hockey publishers. You will have control over what you write, be able to seek out media credentials, and be supported by a large network of writers and editors. Plus, you'll get paid for doing it. If you're interested and want to know more about team openings and requirements, please visit the Write for THW page on the Hockey Writers website. A link to that page is also listed in the description.
And we're back with the second half of our show. Kicking off the second part, we're going to get right into it with the preview of the Florida Panthers. Obviously, they knocked off the Boston Bruins, a major upset considering the record-breaking season that they had. But, you know, you can't take any opponent lightly in these playoffs. Even though that the Panthers are a wild card team, they knocked off an absolute juggernaut of a team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Boston Bruins were the heavily favorited team to win the Stanley Cup. One of the big reasons that they got to this point, and it all comes down to goaltending. Alex Lyon had a feel-good story down the stretch of the regular season, started the playoffs, didn't look great, and then Sergei Bobrovsky, a little bit tongue-tied there. Bobrovsky came in and managed to stop the bleeding for the Panthers and managed to provide some stellar goaltending for them to secure the victory. Alex, we've seen peak Bobrovsky at major moments in the past with the Columbus Blue Jackets sweeping the Tampa Bay Lightning, who at that time had, I believe, a 62-win season. Is Bobrovsky starting to live up to that contract, or is it still too early to tell because he still has a lot to prove given where they're at right now?
I mean, overall, I would say that he hasn't lived up to the contract because he's making $10 million, and it's going to take a lot more than a couple good playoff games to live up to that contract. That being said, I don't think that's a reason for the Leafs to take him lightly. Like you said, you know, peak Bobrovsky can be just as good as peak Vasilevsky. I mean, you know, you're talking about guys who have made runs before, guys who step up in big moments like this, and guys who can take a game and by the bullhorns, and they can sort of just they can win it for their team. So, I mean, I'm not overly concerned about the Leafs going up against Bobrovsky, because I think the fact that they were able to solve Vasilevsky already kind of bodes well for them. That being said, he can't be taken lightly, and if he gets hot, he could be a real X factor in this series for Florida.
Matt, jumping over to you for a quick second on Bobrovsky. I did some digging around early in the day in regards to stats, and when Sergei Bobrovsky played the Toronto Maple Leafs, he went up against them twice before Alex Lyon went in the final two games. Bobrovsky, when he played the Maple Leafs in January, he allowed 5 goals against in an overtime loss with an .865 save percentage. Then fast forward to March 23rd, he allowed another 5 goals against for an .808 save percentage. So you're looking at 10 goals against in 2 games with a save percentage that isn't quite great. Do the Maple Leafs kind of have a playbook on Vasilevsky? Is there any weaknesses that you could pinpoint out in this game right now?
Well, as much as you're saying Bobrovsky, like, he came into the first round and stuff, and, you know, they won the series, but Bobrovsky let in a bunch of goals. It's not like he got shutouts. It's not like he dominated and Boston was like, we can't score on this guy. What was there? It was one game 7-6 or 7-5 or something. It was one of those games. So it's like, I don't know. It's hard to gauge regular season to playoffs. It's hard because if we did that, we'd be like, well, Boston's sweeping Florida. You know, it's hard to look at a regular season. I mean, you can go back and say, well, we did score on him. We do know how to score on him. So maybe you're not coming and going like, you know, goalies can beat you themselves. We all know that. But I don't know. Like Alex said, I don't know if I have a worry that Bobrovsky is going to be a problem. It's funny how they're going up against another Russian goalie, right? Going from Vasilevsky to Bobrovsky. Who's next?
Potentially Shesterkin.
Yeah, right. So there's another one. You
Yeah,
go through all the Russian goalies,
And then I think legally the Leafs have to play someone Russian in the finals too. So if whoever makes the finals doesn't have a Russian goalie, buckle up.
I mean, it kind of seems like that's going to be the direction because, hey, I mean that'll be a very big coincidence on how the Maple Leafs have gone up against a team that has had a Russian goaltender, and God knows how many scenarios. But yeah, I feel like there's still a lot of doubt in terms of Bobrovsky's play. Again, he can pop off at any moment. There isn't any doubt, but I do think that there is a little bit of wariness to his game because in those two outings, they crashed the net pretty well. They got rebounds on him. They know how it seems like he panics in those situations where he doesn't know where the puck is, kind of like early, like Samsonov early on in his career, where maybe he doesn't know where the puck is and then he's a little bit late in trying to do those lateral movements to try and get across. And I think that the Maple Leafs execute very well with their puck movement. Then they can really solve Bobrovsky in this series. This is the problem with this. They can solve Bobrovsky in this series if they're very quick and they crash the crease, because it seems like the Bruins had him figured out, but it seemed like he started to pick it up and give his team some momentum in the games that they needed. Moving over from the goaltenders, I want to talk about one thing that you're keeping an eye on in this series. It could be anything. It could be one aspect. It could be a specific player. I mean, we're going to get to players to watch in a bit. But Alex, what is one thing that you are keeping an eye on in this series? It could be either for the Panthers or for the Maple Leafs.
I'm going to keep an eye on how the Leafs are going to handle Matt Tkachuk in the crease, and I'm looking forward to some very potent battles between him and Luke Schenn down there.
Yes.
That's I don't really have to expand on that, honestly. I mean, Luke Schenn, he was so valuable in this series against Tampa for the Leafs, against the Tampa team that always crashes the crease hard. They've got a bunch of big bodies, especially in their bottom six, who take up a lot of real estate in the crease. And Schenn, I said this in my article about the series, Schenn almost single-handedly kept that crease functioning and not just totally full of chaos all the time. So Tkachuk is arguably, if not the best player in the league in that area. So it's going to be an interesting battle there.
I wonder if we are going to hear some chirps from Luke Schenn to Matt Tkachuk and call him irrelevant, just like he did Tanner Jeannot. I don't know if you saw that. There's a clip going online.
I could have sworn that was Pat Maroon he was calling irrelevant, not.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure it was Pat Maroon.
If it was either Maroon or Jeannot, either way, if that clip alone, it is very expletive filled. We're not going to get into it. It's just that one comment from Luke Schenn, either telling it to Jeannot or Maroon that he was irrelevant, just absolutely sealed it for me, because this is the guy. This is exactly what the Maple Leafs needed in this playoffs. Someone to be the barrier between the team and the Stars. Because if you're wanting to get to any of them, like let's say Matt Tkachuk wants to take a run at somebody, you're going to have to go through Luke Schenn first. So I do agree that Schenn can probably be the human eraser again on Matt Tkachuk this time around.
I really hope that it was Maroon. He said he was irrelevant too, because I actually, just before doing this, I hopped on a different podcast and I corrected the same thing. Someone said he called Jeannot, so I might be wrong here. I'm going to feel like such an idiot, but I'm like 99% sure he called Maroon irrelevant because Brandon Hagel got all defensive about it. And he was like, he's irrelevant? What? Like,
his reaction was hilarious. And again, there's so many bickering going back and forth. There were like three players trying to chirp Luke Schenn, and Luke Schenn wasn't having any of that. So you know what? It could have been Maroon. It could have been Jeannot. Either way, we're going to have to do some major digging into that. Matt, what is one thing that you're looking out for or keeping an eye on in this series?
Yeah, my biggest one is Matthew Tkachuk, of how the Maple Leafs in general are going to deal with him, because he was a monster against the Bruins. Like I want to say he single-handedly beat them, because he was one of the more, probably every shift he was a factor, and the Bruins had no answer. I mean, they didn't know how to deal with them. They didn't have anyone that could deal with them, it seemed. and the Maple Leafs are going to have to find either collectively deal with them or one guy like Shen. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I think I'm going to be watching. If they can neutralize his effectiveness, which I can't remember what team did it in the first round last year against Calgary, or first or second round, and Tkachuk basically disappeared. Maybe he's dealt with that and he's not, but he's going to have to be dealt with because he's just on a monster run right now.
Absolutely. And I think I agree with both of you. They're going to have to try and shut down Tkachuk and even Montour, who was an absolute factor for the Panthers in the blue line. But my main thing is a mix of both for both the Maple Leafs and the Panthers is managing the puck better, because we've seen some very tense moments and poorly timed giveaways from the Maple Leafs in that series against the Lightning. And we saw how well the Panthers can capitalize on neutral zone turnovers and their play to transition going the other way in that Boston Bruins series, specifically in Game 6 and even in Game 7 at times, how well they were able to intercept play. So if the Maple Leafs are able to manage the puck better and connect on passes and use their speed to transition out as one full unit, that'll negate everything that the Florida Panthers tried to succeed in against the Boston Bruins, because they were anticipating those plays, and they need to be smarter about that, because this is a team that can do some damage in transition. Moving on to our second / final topic of the night, depending on how you want to look at it. We got one more fun question coming up, but now we're getting into a player to watch. Matt, who is a player to watch for this series?
I'm gonna go with Noel Acciari. He was really good in the first round. He had he led in hits,
the entire league
in hits, and he's playing his former team. Had his career year 20 goal season back in 2019-20 with the Panthers, and got 19th in Selke voting in that season too. So I'm sure he's wanting to show that he's still that type of player and scoring. I mean, he's obviously going to be physical. He's always been physical throughout his career. So I'm looking at Acciari because I think he could be a pretty good big difference in this series, especially going up against a physical force like Tkachuk too.
Interesting enough, I didn't realize this until now. There was always going to be a possibility ever since the Maple Leafs won that he was going to play his former team, either the Boston Bruins or the Florida Panthers. So I actually would have loved to see Acciari play that gritty type Boston Bruin type game against him and try and, counteract that. Alex, who are you keeping an eye on in the series?
It's got to be Matthew Knies for me. It seems like with every second that goes by in that locker room and every game that goes by, he gets more trust from Sheldon Keefe. He went from a guy who was, the Leafs might use their last contract slot on him to, okay, the Leafs will use that slot on him to, okay, they're going to sign him, but that doesn't mean he'll make the roster to, okay, he's making the roster to, I don't know, we'll try him on the fourth line, but don't expect too much of him to, he'll start on the fourth line and then he'll join the second line and then he'll go on a tear. And now he's starting in the top 6 on the top line with Matthews and Nylander. So you guys know all about Matthew Knies. You talk about him on Prospect Corner all the time. And, you're laughing at what I just said, but that's genuinely
it's how it played out.
Everybody was trying to temper their expectations with Knies, rightfully so, because it's a lot to ask of a 20-year-old college kid to come and make an impact in the lineup immediately. But, he's just been so confident with the puck. He's been confident without the puck. His body type, like the way that he plays his game, fits the NHL. It fits playoff hockey. And count the amount of times you find the guy on the ice for a clutch Leafs goal, even if he wasn't involved in it. He was on the ice for all 3 overtime goals they scored. Ryan O'Reilly's tying goal in Game 3. I'm pretty sure he was on the ice when Matthews opened scoring, made it 3-2 in. It was one of the goals in Game 5. Can't remember which one, but he's been on the ice for a number of goals. And I really think that just with more responsibility, he's going to get more of an opportunity to thrive.
Absolutely. I agree with you on Knies. I was going to say Knies as well, because of the fact that, like you said, you mentioned that long list of the progression of what's going to happen. And then now that he's like, oh, he's on the top line, but now he's not going to score a key goal. Well, watch him score a key goal during the series, or multiple key goals during the series. But I'm going to say Ilya Samsonov. Mainly because of the fact that obviously didn't get off to the best start in Game 1. settled it in game 2, but even when things got dicey, I mean, that game 5 loss really wasn't on him. I would say that Isamont goal shouldn't have gone in. It was a really bad angle. But no matter where the team was or how bad they were playing, he was there to backstop them and give them that stability in the crease to say, hey, I got your back. Now it's time for you to go out and do your job. I think he's going to be a little bit more calm. I think he's going to be a little bit more settled and dialed in this time around, where the nerves are not as high. Yes, the numbers don't look that great. But I do think that he is the better goaltender in this series up against Bobrovsky. But you can't take that for granted. You can't let it show. He's got to be a very effective stalwart, just like he was in game 6, because if it weren't for Samsonov, the Maple Leafs would not have clinched that series. So I'm expecting him to be at the forefront and having a big impact this time around. Jumping to the rapid fire question, it's just going to be one. Or you know what? I'm going to do 2. I'm just going to say 1, make your prediction, and 2, I'm going to get that. I'm going to get to that in a bit. I'm going to say, make your prediction first. Matt, what is your prediction for this series?
Oh, this is a really tough one for me because I don't know really. I mean, it's such a Florida's such a wild card. Like I said, I didn't think they'd have a chance against Boston. I said they're going to win 1 game. So, but I really believe the Maple Leafs have something this time. I'm going to go Maple Leafs in 6 games.
Alex, how about you?
I think it's going to be Leafs in 7. I think the Leafs will break that game 7 curse, and it won't have to come in the first round when they've already got the pressure break in the first round curse on top of that. I think that you've got a team that's full of motivation from breaking a 19-year curse, and you've got a team that's full of motivation after pulling off one of the biggest upsets in NHL history in miraculous fashion. So I think both these teams are going to be super motivated. I think both of them are going to be super fired up. And I really don't think that it's going to be an easy series for either team. I think it's going to go 7, but I do think that the Leafs momentum is going to give them the edge in the end.
Very distinct possibility that it can go 7. I'm going to go Leafs in 6, mainly because of the fact that they know how to close out games right now. They know what to expect, whether it's the first round, second, third, whatever. And we talked about the motivation for both sides. And I think the Maple Leafs had a lot riding on this time around. Like, this is their, I don't know if you could call it the last dance, their last run kind of thing with this core, because you don't know what can happen. But I do think now that they know how to close out a series, I think they'll be able to do it in minimal games. But then again, Florida proved that they can be a tough out. So it wouldn't surprise me if it does go 7. Second rapid fire question, seeing as we already talked about Matthew Knies and he's going to be on the top line, let's say, for instance, he's going to be on the top line consistently this whole entire series. He had 3 points against the Tampa Bay Lightning. How many points does he end with this time around? Alex, I'm going to start with you first.
I'm going to go bold. 6 points.
Ooh. That is, hey, if you're playing with Matthews and Nylander, that is definitely
if he stays
really
up there
take.
If he stays up there and he keeps playing well and the Leafs don't run into a red hot Sergei Bobrovsky, 6 points is in the realm of possibility, I think.
Absolutely. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna go bold as well. I'll go one more. I'll go 7 points.
Oh,
7 points.
Okay.
4 of those will be goals.
Oh,
so I'm going really bold on this one.
Oh my God.
So
wow.
I don't know. I feel like he could have a Matthew Tkachuk type series.
You might as
for a rookie, maybe that's really bold.
You might as well just predict that he's going to win the Conn Smythe in the second round.
I don't know.
Matt,
I don't know. I said on Prospect Corner he's going to score a goal. Now I've just doubled down and more. So
Matt's passion is definitely on the rise right now. That is for sure.
I love Matthew Knies. I've loved him from the draft too. So anything he does is going to be great.
You guys are probably setting the bar really high for Matthew Knies. I'm going to say,
you better not be listening to this.
I mean, if he's tuning in, Matt, go out and get 6-7 points.
Peter, I thought you were going to say 8 points there.
Let's go one
yeah.
more. Just go 10.
I'm gonna say 4 to 5 or 4 or 5. I think that for me is a really safe bet, and I really tend to go the safe bets because you don't know what to expect. Sorry for being,
you got to land on one, Peter. 4 or 5.
Sorry to be the buzzkill here, but
I'm coming off the Matthew Wood thing. So Matthew Wood almost my prediction.
There you go. I'll say 4, but almost get to 5 points. How about that?
Okay. I like it.
I do think that the production is going to increase. I do think he's going to score some timely goals this time around. The fact that he's getting more comfortable in front of the net, and I see him like become that open option in the slot, and we see how deadly his shot can be. If he's able to connect and use that accuracy like we saw in college, oh man, yeah, that is going to be definitely tough to stop, just because you're going to have Nylander's shot, Matthew's shot, and now you have the shot from Matthew Knies. So you have 3 deadly shooters on that top line that could be a very, very deadly combination right then and there. That is all that we have for this episode. Thank you for tuning in to the first ever Maple Leafs Lounge episode where they actually win a playoff series. And thank you for tuning in for the Florida Panthers preview in the second half of the show. That is all that we have for this episode. Until next week, we're going to see some games in the second round, and we will have more reaction and analysis next time. For Alex Hobson and Matthew Zator, I'm Peter Baracchini. We'll see you next time on the Maple Leafs Lounge.